Quite an undertaking with the orange.
Yeah, I thought you might have to.
But
No, you're.
All right, camera is running again, so I had paused it.
Well, Clippers didn't look that good. The Lakers didn't look that good.
No.
Has it been a long day lately?
or she does and she doesn't.
I used to be able to do a dog or something.
Yeah.
Hello, you're welcome to sit. There's a chair here if you want to pull it like right up here, or there's a chair back here.
I don't have COVID.
No, but,
Yeah.
no,
6
but
feet, yeah.
try and do 6 feet.
Well, I was gonna go sit over in the desk here. Can I go over there?
Yes, you can.
And hide?
Mhm.
Village Hall.
Probably deserve it, right? Nobody puts baby in a corner.
I love that show.
Little boy.
Yes, I love that show from Dirty Dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Swayze was a hottie.
What? Which movie?
Dirty Dancing we were talking about, sorry. See?
Yeah, but not really hot. He's not dancing in that one.
Randall.
Agendas were on the table. Are they gone?
Yeah.
Gotta make 15.
They're hidden somewhere. Yeah.
They're hidden
People, I think
somewhere.
I took the last one. Commissioner Bailey.
She's making.
Y'all make that.
Oh, terrible. Don't go there.
Well, but he was so cross country last year.
Yeah. Like.
Okay.
Who still needs an agenda?
Mr. Hart, yeah.
He's just excited because he can't. I don't know how many board meetings he has.
Obviously, that's fine.
That's why the-
What?
Are you ready, Julie?
Yes, I am,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, 7 o'clock, call the order verification meeting notice.
Posted it on the web.
All right, to then roll call, please.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Here.
Mr. Brisboy?
Here.
Mrs. Variance?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Manning?
Here.
Mrs. Peterson?
Here.
Mrs. Rowe?
3 then approval of the agenda.
I will so move.
Been moved by Mr. Brisboy to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Variance. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Agenda is approved. 4 then approval of the minutes of, you have minutes from the last meeting or not?
Oh my gosh, I didn't link them. I
We
apologize.
can do them at the next one.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do them at the next one.
No minutes. 5 then, citizens forum. Any citizens wishing to speak?
One back here.
If you just want to speak about something in general, but if it's something that's already on the agenda, we'll get to it. Usually it's like so-and-so did something or this team did something.
Has to do with athletics.
Yeah, we'll hit that later.
Can I see it down?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anyone on the Zoom raising their hand over there, Julie?
No, I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Okay. 6 then, old business. 6.1, discussion of possible action on starting school. 6.11, discussion possible action on Wednesday, September 2nd and 9th.
So last time we had a board meeting, I asked that we have 2 solid weeks of school so that the kids could get into a nice rhythm. And we've since discovered that the parents of the virtual students really need some training. And so do our students that aren't only virtual on Wednesdays. So we are planning, if you guys are all right with it, to take September 2nd. Huge planning day for, not planning day, but training parents and all the kids virtually in the new, both in their Chromebooks or in their Schoology or whatever's needed so that the parents can then learn and do that. And then same thing with the 9th, just getting them back up to speed versus them losing that on a day of education.
So then Julie, do they have to come in or they'll be able to Zoom?
We're hoping that they can set that up with the Zoom, that the parents can learn. We've actually created, just in the past couple of days, a parent hub so that the parents can click on some things and learn how to read things on their own, access to Schoology. What does it look like? How do I see this? How do I see that? Same thing with some Zoom things. So if they're not available at the exact time that, say, an elementary teacher sets up their work time, the elementary teacher would tape it and that we would link it to the hub so that the parents can watch it and refer back to it. Did somebody say something on Zoom?
I heard your name.
The other thing too that I asked for with this is, our parents need to be planning for the inevitable closure. And so we're already, we're on the 3rd week, that Wednesday is automatically, it's been approved that it's off for connecting with the virtual kids, continued planning and using of Schoology and creating of lessons and things like that. And I just think our parents need to be ready for when this comes, and figure out at home, what am I going to do on these virtual days, and who's going to help care for children, or where are they going to go? And I just think if we put it off, it just prolongs them being ready for the potential short-term closure if our cases rise in the county, or if we're closed by the county, if we have numbers in the building. So,
Well, we have kids starting virtual the first day.
right.
So if they can't log on that first day, then we needed to have trained the parents better. We don't want to repeat that mistake 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day until we finally have a day where we can train them.
So in the next week, will there be an email going out that, so we can download the app and we can, mess around with it ahead of time before the first day and get it figured out?
Definitely. That's what part of the hub is for, the parent hub. It's going to have lots of information in it. I've created a frequently asked questions. I'm actually on the radio tomorrow morning, so we can link that because Ron will tape it and then they can hear it if they, in a car when they're driving someplace. All the steps we're going to be taking.
And an email will go out soon?
And an email and a
Okay.
media blast.
Got it.
It's just, as we get closer to that start date, more and more things still have to get into place. And so I just feel if we push it too fast, they're gonna flounder, and then we won't have time already embedded to say, all right, pause and reach out to you and be able to do that and have it be a more successful.
And also, if we do go virtual on all of our Wednesdays, this is just a way to get everybody starting that and understanding what the criteria is for everybody.
Any other questions, comments?
Question back
Are
there.
there gonna be enough staff to be able to help these parents? Rather than just, Adam's one person.
Oh, this is all on the teachers. This is so the teachers can set up training because it's going to look different in, Mr. Herbst's room than it is in Mrs. Wabshaw's room.
Okay.
So she would do what she needs to do for training. And maybe the high school will have their own hour of training,
Right.
or the middle school would have something. I know the middle school's been working on a lot of small little things to assist the middle schoolers and more step-by-step instructions for that.
So if we have a situation like happened, I don't know, Friday or today or whenever it happened, where Zoom went down for several hours, do the teachers just record it and then the kids have to log on later and do it? Or I mean, what will that look like?
Yeah, but they'd have to.
Okay.
But if Zoom's really down, then we might not even have access to it.
Right.
And those things will happen whether we're in the building or not.
Right.
You know, Schoology has been bogged down because everybody's on it, and so they have to, you know, build their infrastructures. Zoom's got to do the same thing.
Right.
So, you know, I think it'll come, but we'll have times where it'll be like, put the brakes
I
on.
understand that. And there's email to communicate with parents and kids, and we still have Google Classroom where they can log on to their emails and stuff too, right?
Yep,
The kids anyway.
yep.
So, okay.
And we've done, so out of our entire parent population, I only have 2 parents that do not have email, and I know who they are, and I can communicate with the kid a different way and get the same information, so.
Okay, just so we have some backups in
Yeah,
place for
oh
the
yeah.
inevitable crashes. Okay.
And if nothing else,
And
you
that
just
should
call them.
be made notes in the information that goes out that, hey, there will be, you know, some hiccups, you know,
Right,
Zoom
yeah.
could go down or Schoology could go down, and we will address that at those times,
Yeah.
but, you know.
Or something
it's
happened,
gonna
is
happen.
today Monday? Today's Tuesday?
What is Monday?
Today's Monday.
Well, was it this morning? I don't know, like, it was.
It was this morning, yeah.
Something happened and everybody was down, so, you know, that'll happen, so.
Yeah. Just put that in there that we know it's gonna happen, and we'll address it and
Yep.
plan accordingly, and,
Yep.
you know,
As long as we're
Address it
making
then.
efforts.
Yep.
It'll be okay.
any other questions, comments?
Are we looking for a motion to make these Wednesdays virtual then, since we already said they weren't going to, or are we just gonna? It's just okay, we don't need a motion.
We can make a motion.
I would prefer a motion, that way it's,
Okay, I'll make a motion that September 2nd and September 9th will be virtual days for training the virtual kids. I don't know how to do that, whatever.
I'll second that motion.
Been
Sure
moved
you
and
wanna-
seconded to make the September 2nd, September 9th virtual days. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay then, 6.1.2, discussion possible action on high school cohort.
so as we were planning, we talked to Rose, and what happened is that we decided that because you had seen our big picture graph of every class and how many mixed classes there were, we decided that the safest way to do this for the kids was to cohort them. Well, depending on whether or not we have football and volleyball, you know, they're going to be intermixing for sports anyway. So the high school teachers they voted, I guess is a good way to put it. And they wanted to have the classes be more normal rather than cohorted. And so they're here to explain their plan, and they think it'll work just fine, but I'm going to let them talk it through.
Yeah, we had talked about it to start with, and I think that this is the best way to go for the high school. The middle school would stay in the cohorts. But one of the main reasons is that if high school stays in cohorts, there's a bunch of classrooms that may have 3 to 4 different classes going on in that classroom at the same time. So I'd like these guys to talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I guess if you look at it from the outset, it looks like a pretty safe measure, but when it comes down to it, when the teachers are going from classroom to classroom, we're walking into a room, we don't know what was been touched, we don't know who sat where, we didn't know what went on. Whereas if we allow the kids to go from classroom to classroom, we then can start our sanitary procedures of whatever we're gonna do by spraying down the desk and whatever else was touched. And we could even, again, if we can't get it done ourselves, we can incorporate the students to help us by giving them all paper towel as they walk in, and they can, you know, wipe off their table and dispose of that. And so that way we know exactly what needs to be sanitized from hour to hour. If you think about the teachers that do have to move from classroom to classroom, we'd almost need a cart per class, per teacher. And because we won't have enough time in passing to get everything off of our cart from the last period, put all the stuff on the next period, and then get going. And as Chris just mentioned too, one of the other concerns we have besides the safety thing is we could have virtual classes that I'm sitting in a classroom, and out of the 20 kids that are in my classroom, only one is actually in my class. And we could have, you know, science classes, FCE, checking out, of course, in agriculture classes that the kids won't get those labs, those hands-on experiences if they're sitting in another teacher's classroom and they have to listen to that teacher and that instructor through Zoom or everything else. And that brings up another major concern of mine is, you know, I don't know if Adam says we are, but I have some great concerns whether or not if we go to a cohort and we have that many numbers of students Zooming just to listen to their teacher in another classroom, will we really have enough bandwidth? Will we, you know, the WASP that we have set up, students could be attaching to my classroom and that might bog down some of the students in my room type of thing too. So there's a lot of things there that are some concerns. Again, but I think the two top things for most of us is the classroom management and the cleanliness. You know, again, we can sanitize, we can clean up. For those of us who have smaller classes, can monitor the hallways from time to time to make sure the kids will only be passing, you know, 3 minutes, so they're not gonna have a lot of contact. We do have some classes that are shared as far as the same groups of kids, sophomore classes, junior classes type of thing. So those teachers like Mr. Tupon and Mr. Tomey can hold their kids back because those kids are gonna go from one room to the other room as a group because they're basically in that same group. Whereas most people in my classes, they're 9-12. And I don't have just juniors or just sophomores, just seniors. And that's what the majority of the teachers that we've talked to about, they're in that same position. So we don't think the fact that they only have 3 minutes to get from point A to point B is going to be a major problem. As long as we're watching them a little bit. Chris has got the luxury of having those extra eyes in the ceilings. If something does occur, he's got video proof of what on. And so we don't think that's going to become a major issue with kids being kids, the way they are doing.
No, I was one who was working on the schedule for like what teachers would go to what rooms. And I mean, they were having to really transfer to other rooms all the time. And I guess I think about how they lost a good almost semester. Well, not quite, but last year, and with classes like math and science, I guess it'd be nice for them to have face-to-face with those kind of classes where they need some more help.
Again, it's classroom management. I might be lecturing to 1 or 2 kids. They may have some other kids in the back of the room. They're listening to Mr. Tupon. They have a question. They need to talk to him and work, the problem solved that way too. And it could be a very bad distraction, not only to the teachers, but of course the other students that are in the room trying to learn. And again, these other kids aren't trying to be troublemakers or anything, that they want to interact in their class as well. And that's the only way they're going to be able to do it. They can have earbuds in and whatnot to listen, but they're still going to have to speak and ask the questions, which could be, again, very disruptive for a lot of people.
I think they did the math too, and it pretty much most of the classrooms fit the square footage per person. So I think they really, and hats off to the Restart Committee for all your hard work and everything. It's just it's an evolving process, and it's just fluctuates, ebbs and flows. But I think all of us kind of sat together and said what's going to work and what's safe and what's the amount of square footage. And if it didn't, there's some teachers that are actually switching classrooms for those hours to make sure it's safe.
Any other
Has
questions?
this been
comments?
run past Rose?
No, Rose said the safest way to cohort the student, to keep the students is in the cohorts. I did talk to her. We can do it if the board wants to, but it is not as safe as cohorting. And it is also much harder to do contact tracing. So if there were an outbreak, basically it would shut the school down because the kids are all in different rooms every single hour. But if you're gonna say yes to sports, so I don't know if you guys wanna wait on this decision until after the sports discussion, decide what you're gonna do with sports. If we're not gonna be in sports, then the kids would be very much safer cohorted. If you are gonna go forward with sports, there's no need to cohort because they're all intermingling after hours. So they're kind of linked in my mind.
And the other thing I guess I want to throw out there too is, I know for some of us it's been a few years, but cohorting in elementary, middle school is usually not a problem because those are pretty age bracketed. But could you imagine being in high school kids stuck in the same classroom all day long? Again, I'm concerned about how that's gonna affect the learning process, how that's gonna affect them not being able to at least get up and move around from time to time too. So again, our biggest concern is, according to the county nurse, this may not be the safest method, but I think if we take these other practices, I think between the sanitation, and again, they're only gonna be passing the hallway for 3 minutes maximum. We shouldn't have a lot of exposure. I disagree with the contact tracing, because again, if they need 5 to 15 minutes in order to be, considered to be on the contact tracer type thing, we're not gonna give them a lot of those opportunities during the course of a day. And again, to balance that against the weight of a student's ability to learn or not to learn, because the little small distractions, I think, outweighs the fact that we should go with the cohort.
So you brought up an interesting thing. What about middle school kids who have exploratory classes and would be in the high school?
Us 4 teachers will go to those classes.
We're part on a cart to their room.
So we're concerned about high school kids being antsy in the same room all day, but not the middle school kids?
I think the middle school wanted to stay in their
Yeah.
cohorts, if I'm not mistaken.
They
It
did.
wasn't
So
just-
And
I'm
most of
saying
those-
from a psychology standpoint, we just brought up the fact that high school kids are gonna be antsy and wanna get up and move around, but we think middle school kids are fine sitting in a room all day.
But I think the reason why the middle school wanted to stay in their cohorts is that, again, most of those classes like science and math and social, they're A or B. They're 7A, 8A, 8B, and those kids stay together no matter
I
what.
understand
So,
that. I was addressing your point about the kids being antsy.
I'm sorry.
I was addressing your point about the high schoolers wanting to get up and move around a little bit. Seems like if we're gonna let them do it, why would, I mean, middle school, they're
Wow.
preteens and pretty antsy too,
Right.
so just.
And they will, and I'm sure the middle school teachers will come up with a system that they're gonna come up with to alleviate that problem. But again, they don't have the situation that they have a 6th grader, a 7th grader, and an 8th grader all in the same class at the same time. And I think that's why it fits their situation a lot better.
I understand that part, but
But yeah, the middle school kids are gonna get antsy too.
So are the elementary. I mean, all kids are gonna be antsy. You're gonna have the little ones that, I mean, I think you could have that argument with any age.
Yeah, I think our bigger concern is that if the elementary or middle, and we've talked about this, that they may move their kids outside or they may be giving them different breaks, and we're setting up a schedule where they can't really do that in high school, because if Jim takes his class out, he's actually taking 4 classes out at the same time. Because they're supposed to be online, listening to David or Greg.
This is Melissa Sprecher. And I was also with Mary Beth helping with the scheduling. And one thing that just hasn't been brought up yet is there's actually some kids, because of the way that we had to move the teachers if we did cohorts, they would never have a face-to-face day with their teacher, because there was no way to possibly do it. And it's not just 1 or 2 kids, it's several. And it's just because of the way they are in cohorts and the way the classes are mixed, there was just no way to get them into a time when that teacher could come be face-to-face with them.
I think it's important to note too, that teachers put up to vote, and I think all of us would prefer not to do cohorts.
How will lunch be handled without course? It's just that, are they gonna have it at that hour? Do they go to stay in the room that's the closest to that?
High school is going to eat in the cafeteria. We're going to do like a cascading dismissal. And then as soon as they get their food, they're gonna go, we can use the cafeteria, the gym, and the outside area to eat. Once a certain area is filled, then we'll say, okay, now you have to sit someplace else. So they are going to be in the same room, 6 feet apart as a whole, because there's no way we can feed that many kids. It's gonna be hard getting the middle schoolers fed in their rooms.
go ahead.
I was saying, and when I first heard that too, and I was talking to Frank about that, because I thought, man, I was concerned about them using the gym. But actually what they would do is we'd pull the bleachers. They would have certain areas spotted off where a sticker on them, that's where the kid has to sit. And that way they're not spilling all over the floor, they're not, all over the place. And he thought for the custodian and maintenance crew, it'd be a lot easier to clean up the bleacher area than it would to, lay down tarps, take up the tarps, and try to keep stuff off the floor, so.
They would sit backwards at the bleachers. So they would sit and then they'd use the next step up as their table.
Well, and we need to remember they're high schoolers. If they make a mess, they can clean it up.
Great motion.
So when Melissa started talking, it made me think, so if the teachers are going to middle school to do exploratories, I understand, you know, Peg, you can take paints or whatever and all that, but what is Melissa gonna do? Because they'd almost have to go to her room for when she's doing cooking segments and stuff, wouldn't they? And sewing, I mean, how is she gonna,
She would have that availability with the cohort she was with.
like, wait till everybody's out of the hallway and then take them
Correct.
down there? That makes more sense, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and Mary Beth and Liz are doing that too. Moving kids possibly to a different room. I think Liz is going down below.
And then I suppose Jim would do that with the greenhouse then, like wait till all the kids are on the hallway and then take your kids out there or something, okay.
Any other questions, comments? I guess what is the recommendation from the administration? Ruby?
Personally, I liked it when they were cohorted, they were safer. I know Mr. Lechner very much likes it that they're doing it the other way. So we're kind of split that way. Kathleen feels she has personal stake in it. So
I was in favor of this until over the weekend, just got thinking about it, you know, and elementary, we're gonna stay. That is the safest. I've looked on the CDC. The most safe is 100% virtual. Then the next is the cohorting, staggered schedules, things like that. We're going up quite a ways up the ladder with this. So with the contact tracing, it's almost, you know, Jim mentioned the 5 to 15. Well, they're in the hallway 24 minutes. And if I'm always next to Ron at the locker and Ron's positive, I'm gonna get it. And so is most of the kids around us, as far as get traced to potentially be quarantined. So if our goal is to stay in the building as long as possible, I don't like it. But I respect the fact that it is a classroom management nightmare. I mean, having that many kids and zooming in and all that, but again, our goal is in the building as long as possible.
Well, and our goal, I disagree a little bit, is what's best for kids and their education. And I just, and again, we've talked this over lots of times and everybody has opinions. And my opinion is that contact tracing wouldn't be that bad. That's on the county health nurse to figure out that. And I just don't think that we're going to be next to the same people each time we move class. And I don't think that it's going to be very long that they're next to people.
So we're not going to allow them to use their lockers, correct, though? They
Well,
will carry everything with them?
What we're talking about right now is possibly putting things in your locker when you get here. Because when it comes winter time, there's no way that they're gonna have 18 coats and boots in the locker, because when you put it next to in each classroom, that coat will be sitting next to the other kid much closer than it would be sitting in their locker for the.
But that would be
15
the only use, not that they'd be going to their
I mean,
locker?
right now, that's what we're looking at. Then,
It's quite a bit of
you know, if we do that, then we also have a concern about all the kids walking with big backpacks.
Well, but I think you will have a very hard time with kids next to each other in the locker, not maybe staying longer than they should.
Well, they only have 3 minutes. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, the longest, if it takes them a minute to get to their locker, a minute at their locker and a minute to get to their next class, they're even underneath or under that time limit of what Rose says, that if someone tests positive, they become someone who has to be quarantined. So if I remember correctly, it's if you are within 6 feet with a mask up or over 15 minutes. So, I mean, there's no way that they're going to be beside each other for longer than, I mean, at tops 2 minutes.
It's 15 over a 24-hour time period. It's not 15 consecutive minutes.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about the beginning of the day and the end of the day. I was talking about during the day.
Right. I would feel much more comfortable if they were having their backpacks and carry their backpacks.
Are you
And not
planning for us
go to
to
the
have them
lockers.
go straight to their first hour when they get?
Yep.
And waiting there and having, and not be mingling in the hall before first. That's what it-
And that's something that's going to have to be learned. But that is our plan.
I think it's just like anything else. We've all got to know and realize that there's going to be a lot of compromise. If people go into it thinking, okay, it's going to be this way or it's going to be this way, both sides are going to be very disappointed. So, you know, if we're wanting to do this without cohorts, we've got to make sure the kids, you know, learn that we've got to be very good on the social distancing in the classrooms, the mask wearings, social distancing in the hallways when we can. So we're not coming before school and all, you know, getting together. You know, if we want to be back in school, it's going to have to be, we're going to have help. You know, it's not like we can say, these are the rules, and then nobody follow them and help out because we're not going to be in school very long. So to me, to do this, it's a lot better way to teach kids, you know, because we can get them in there. And I can absolutely see the point of, you know, different kids in 3 different classes in the same classroom and not having face-to-face with teachers. If we can give on, you know, they're only going to be at the locker at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and stress to the kids that we're not going to stand around the lockers 15 minutes before school, you know, get your stuff, get to your room. You know, that's probably a trade-off worth having to make sure these kids, you know, especially some of these kids they struggle in the virtual learning. You know, if we can get them back and get them in the classroom and get them, you know, the extra attention they need.
I guess another personal concern I would have too is as I'm packing up my cart to go to another classroom and I'm leaving that classroom, who's watching the kids before, you know, in between when I leave and when the next teacher, who I'm probably gonna meet halfway down the hallway, is coming with their car. I mean, and those are again, little things that I don't want to be setting kids up, you know, and again, it's one of those personal concerns again I have.
Any other questions, comments?
So I did tell Mr. Lechner, I said, you can go ahead and ask their staff, you know, so I bought it, his judgment, if that's what he feels is best, I'm okay with that, or I wouldn't even let him ask. I truly do believe staying in cohorts would be safer, but I see all those other arguments. And, you know, we're gonna have to all take a few risks now and then, so. Making
I'll
sure.
make a motion and we do not.
And moved by Mr. Manning to not cohort in the high school,
I will second that.
and second by Mr. Brisbois.
Just a second here. Can we add though that the locker time is before and after?
Accept the amendment? Yes. Okay, accepts the amendment. That they only go to their lockers before and after school? Okay. You're happy with the amendment? You're happy with the amendment? Okay.
I would second that.
Okay.
Amendment.
Let's do a roll call, please.
Here, Mr. Brisbois.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriant.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski.
I'm really comfortable with it, but I'm gonna trust the teacher's judgment, say yes.
Motion carries. Then we'll be on to 6.2, discussion possible action on fall 2020 athletics, middle school and high school.
So just for your information, for those of you who do not know, and this is as things might have changed because there were several meetings yet this week. Seneca of Seneca Wazeeka Steuben voted to go all athletics in the spring. Riverdale also voted to do all athletics in the spring. So the people that would still be in our conference playing 8-man would be DeSoto, Hillsborough, Boscobel, and Highland, and they are all planning on playing. 11 man. Did I say 8 man?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're 11 man.
Can you repeat that then?
Yes. DeSoto, Hillsborough, Boscobel, and Highland, who were in our original conference, are all planning on playing 11-man football this year so far. We have been asked by other schools like Hillsborough. Oh, they're in here. Never mind. They're in here. There was another one, Chad, wasn't there? Who else wanted to?
Onalaska Luther is asked to be in, and the commissioner of the league sent out a conference only schedule with 6 teams. If we vote yes, there would be 6 teams, and you play all 5 conference games first, and then after that, the teams would be have a choice of playing some non-conference games against local areas.
So Chad, can you explain how this will be safe? I mean, this is a contact sport.
Yeah, just on that statement though, I would say high school football is safer than it's ever been as far as protocols for heat acclimation, concussions, any kind of injuries.
What's going to be over the face?
When you're outdoors, you do not have to be masked, according to the WIA and the CDC for this. So as far as our practices, we had a 2-day camp. We marked out along the fences 6 feet to 8 feet apart, and that's where the individuals stretched out. Conditioning wise, we put them in groups of 6 based on the amount of kids that were at the camp. We would try to stay in that 6 to 7 kid range for most of the startup practice when they do conditioning, warm up, and all that. Obviously, there's going to be times where we go full groups, but that's just how football is. You can't play without having 11 kids lined up and they can play. As I explained to Mrs. Prouty, if you've seen us play in the last few years, we have kids on the sidelines that use cards. So we really don't even huddle. The kids stay spread out. They look over to the sidelines and several kids have cards up based on formation and play. So in that regard, we have some good things already for distancing.
Keep in mind the practice, they're pretty well in their cohort groups, you know, the linemen are working out together, the backs, stuff, they're all in receivers, and they're all split up throughout the field doing their own little thing. The only time they really get together is during the running plays and things like that. We really don't have enough kids to even scrimmage as a not 20.
It's not safe to scrimmage with all our younger guys. So.
But
Yeah.
you know, football, when you line up, it's like this. When you're on that line and they're looking at each other, how will they not exchange sweat and spit?
I can't say that they're not going to, but if they've been not sick at home all day, if they do their temperature checks, they've been at school all day, I really, that's a chance you take, I guess, but I don't see how it's that unsafe versus them.
It's not any bigger risk than when they're at home not taking their temperature coming to school. It's the same exposure. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we start the season, there's an outbreak, we get pulled out of school, we go virtual.
Yep.
Do you get to finish your season in the spring or is it just done? Like all the kids
That's
are
a
moving
great
to.
question.
Yeah.
They did say that we could play 7 games, and however it ended up is we played 3 now and 4 in the spring. The
So
other
it
thing
can
that
be split.
You can't have gone over 50% of your games.
Yeah.
So if he played 4 games and then we were closed down, they'd be done.
Okay.
Yeah, once we would hit the 4-game barrier, it's, whatever's left is great. If we can do it, so.
When's your first game, official game
The
scheduled right
first
now?
game would be September 25th. First practice would be September 7th.
So the games that are scheduled now, because they redid the schedule, aren't, so Onalaska's not in that.
No, not from the previous one, just the one that was sent out today.
Okay, I didn't get the actual games. I just got that there would be, so
Yeah.
we would play 1 time each. DeSoto, Hillsborough, Basketball, Highland. Who's the other?
And then that Onalaska team.
I don't really want Onalaska team, sorry.
One thing that you're talking about there too is with the county health people, they're changing the way they look at that. If there's a nursing home in Richland Center that has an outbreak, they're not gonna shut the whole county down. They're gonna take care of the nursing home, take care of the workers that were there quarantined, and take care of the problem. They're not gonna say somebody out in Boaz that didn't come to town for 10 days. They shouldn't be quarantined because of something that happened there. So I think it would be in the same boat if 10 kids came here and testing positive, then yeah, it's not gonna be good news, but they're gonna take care of that individual problem, get it fixed, and then go back.
But if it means shutting down the school, that's not a good problem.
I didn't say that it was good. I'm saying they're looking at it differently than saying the whole county's down because 10 people are in a nursing home.
So did I see that we were playing River Valley for homecoming and they're putting off till spring, or did I read that?
Riverdale,
Yeah.
and they are putting it off till spring, so
So we don't have a different plan for that? You're gonna go for it?
we haven't gotten that far.
It hasn't got that far because they have to redo just the whole school.
And it's a Saturday. We might not get a game on the Saturday. We might have to play a Friday night game. We don't know. But
What are we doing with fans? I know volleyball there, recommendation was no fans.
I talked to that Rose, actually, me and Richland Center's coach wrote up a program, a whole protocol situation. He already turned it into Rose and she accepted it. And I'd be willing to share it, you can have it. But as fans, it's outdoors. I only have one.
Who's gonna patrol the social distancing?
What I was gonna say was, outside, you can put people here, it's not, 30,000 people, it's, nice crowd is 500.
But what I'm saying is who's gonna control social distancing? We still don't want 30 people to all huddle next to each other.
We would probably have to mark off the field on the side, and all you need is this paint stripper.
But what I'm saying is who's gonna patrol that and make sure that
That's, that would have to be the administration. But I think it could be done, because when you come to a game, most everybody's standing around the field anyways. She said the people that are family could obviously sit together because they're at home or play together. But it would just be, non-family people would have to be 6 foot distance. And she preferred masks. That was her statement.
That's what Rose said, I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah. She would prefer masks, but it would be easy outside to do 6 foot social distancing.
I'm assuming you're against putting it off till spring then?
Yeah, it would be because of how they set it up would be, you'd start in February. I don't think anybody in the main line can go out here in February and practice. By the time, the field would, even if there was no snow, it would be hard as a rock. And then by the time that we were ending, it would be probably thaw in a mud hole. And those that attended Black Hawk last year, I don't want to see kids go through that again. The field was terrible. So I would be against it. And the way, the other reason too is they set it up, winter sports would be ending during the start, I believe. And then spring sports would be almost an overlap of three weeks. We're just small schools that have overlapping season. That'd be good for Middleton and Sunbury, where those kids probably play one sport, but not here. I thought our commissioner did a really good job of talking to us and forming this where we play all of our conference games first. Usually a regular season, you play 2 non-conference games, go into your conference, and then the playoffs. Here, if we say yes, it gives us 6 teams, so 5 weeks. And then anything after that would be up to the individual schools. Richland Center has reached out, they'd like to play us. That'd be the closest game we could ever possibly play. You know, so it's things like that could happen towards the end.
So and you guys in practices and that, you're kind of recommending these guidelines here?
Pretty much. I've talked to Julie a few times. We need to probably have, well, my best thing would be is if we could clean out the athletic shed that's on by the field. And me and Jay actually measured it. We could hang metal pipes on the rafters. And so their stuff could be 6 feet apart at least, and we could have fans in there because there's electricity. And we figure probably 35 kids, so we could, like kids in the side door, these groups that we were talking about at the start of practice that they're already in. So the group of 6 goes in the side door to the back area and hangs their stuff, and a group of 6 goes in the front, hangs their stuff. They come out, then, and we can get it done in not too long.
We were even talking about marking the floor out, so they got their own little 6 foot square. All their gear has got to be in there.
Because that's another thing too, is usually football's a month before school starts, and so we're here at night by ourselves, but now that we'd be starting as soon as school's over, the only situation they have is putting their gear on, but if you've seen us, all they do is wear shorts for practice with pull-up knees. So really, they're taking their pants off for about 2 seconds, putting a pair of shorts on and walking back out of the shed. It's not, I don't think it'd be too tough to do. The loft is obviously worse. It's too tight up there. There's no way we can have spacing up there.
Did you see this part on here that says players are required in bold letters and underlined to wear a face covering during practices and competitions during the state ordered mask mandate by Governor Evers?
Yeah, if they are not participating.
Doesn't say that
No,
on
it
here.
It
doesn't.
doesn't say that.
No.
Well, it should.
Well,
Sorry.
That's the one you said you gave me,
Yeah.
and you hadn't changed it to the Ithaca one yet, so that's when I,
Because we wanted to talk about the shed and other things.
Yeah, it says it's slated to be lifted September 28th, but the first game is the 25th too, so, and then practices and all that, so just wondering how we were
I'll have to look at
reconciling that.
again, but,
So how will it be, like, as far as, like sanitizing the footballs and sanitizing those type of things?
yes, that's all. We're gonna have to have a plan with Frank as far as having.
Well, you'll have to have somebody you'll have to have a coach or a kid during your practices taking care of that.
That is correct. Mr. Kling has already accepted the COVID-19 coaching responsibility. We don't know how many managers we're gonna be allowed to have or want to do it. But yes, that'll have to happen. And several, we take a water, that's the one thing that I'd like to talk about too, is we gotta figure out how we're gonna get water in their jugs, because they probably came to school with a water bottle. I highly doubt it's gonna be full by the time that school's out. So there's gonna have to be a system in place that they can refill their water jug when they come out there. And then have that accessible.
We did talk about what if, because we've been having students that are virtual, but they then want to play sports, which is allowed. So they would not have gotten their temperature taken. So we've talked about the sports teams. They have somebody, a COVID coach, we're calling them, because they're the ones that are keeping track of the kids, who's in, who's out. For contact tracing, we have to do that. And so they would get their temperature taken before the sport started, if they had been a virtual child during the day.
I noticed this part on here about mouth guards and trying to create new habits and stuff. Are we gonna encourage the offensive and defensive lines to not scream and taunt at each other when they're this far apart, or how is that gonna be handled? Because I know that's a thing.
I would highly doubt you see our kids taunting other teams.
Well, I don't just mean our kids. I mean, there's gonna be kids on the other side of the line trying to taunt our kids too. They're always screaming at each other.
I don't see that.
No? All right.
Do we know what of the other schools that are still playing, what their mask mandates are? So if we're all mask mandate and the other schools aren't mandating masks, and then we play them, that's quite an increased risk to.
DeSoto wants to do everything exactly like regular football.
No, I'm saying like during the school day.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So if their kids are all day long, aren't wearing masks in school and commingling, that just increases the chance of an outbreak at that school, and then we play them.
I have to say that I don't have the notes on the 4 teams that I talked about, Highland, Basketball, Hillsborough, and DeSoto. But I can definitely get that information.
Face mask. My wife said, but she wasn't aware that they had the face. Possible, I've not heard.
We are one of the few districts that are wearing face masks all day.
Okay.
I gotta say that.
Hillsborough is too, but they're block schedule, so they're less.
Weston is not, but we're not playing them. Richland Center is not, but we're not playing them. So I know quite a few. I just don't know all of these guys.
And Richland Center hasn't decided yet.
They decide Monday.
That's coming up.
Is people who wear masks, are they in school right now?
They are in school. They are not required to wear masks all day.
They having trouble?
We just had a meeting today where Doug Olson, the superintendent, talked to the rest of us about things he would have done differently. They have not had any cases of COVID. They had a brother of somebody exposed, a staff member, and they have sent 1 teacher home and 2 kids home sick, but nobody's been diagnosed with anything.
They've been in a week,
Yeah.
a couple now. This is the
1
second week.
week.
Yeah, 1 week. They're starting the second week.
Yes.
So
Island starts tomorrow.
it'd be a bit early to, to see things start popping up.
Well, the one thing that was said about crowd control and that administration would have to do it. I think administration has enough on their plate.
My question to that.
So maybe not have fans.
Liable for that? I don't know. Because it's an outside thing. It's no different if you're walking down the street without your mask.
But I think it all boils down to if, we do get kids test positive for COVID, and it's kids that have played sports, then it's gonna be wondering, okay, where did they get it? Now, did we bring it in from outside and somebody else gets it? Who's gonna be left standing at the end of the day holding the responsibility bag? And, it's the people that gotta make the decisions, and that's why, we probably have to look at things in a different light and look at everything, because I'm pretty sure, the other people aren't gonna jump up and say, yeah, we made a mistake, we shouldn't have gone back. It'll be the board and the administration that are gonna have to shoulder those responsibilities, and I think that's what when you sit up here, that's what you gotta consider that too, but.
Yeah, I just didn't know, does it really fall on the school? I mean, if you're posting it out there that a mask is required, social distancing and all that, and people just ignore it.
It's a public, it's not like a private business, it's a public thing. And if you get a lawyer that decides that they think it's a pretty good case, at the very least, it's gonna cost you a lot of lawyer's fees.
Parents also have to take some responsibility as well.
I just got a
They
note,
have to, but
We live in
So-
a very
there's
litigious
nobody.
society.
that's gonna
Well, I
go-
know.
Highland is wearing masks.
Who?
Highland is wearing masks
Okay.
during the
Can I
day.
ask a question about thermometers?
Mhm.
What type of thermometer are we using, being a nurse?
You being a nurse? Because I'm like, I'm not a nurse.
I'm a nurse,
The not touch ones.
so you're using the forehead,
Mhm.
okay. And who's cleaning those? Using a temporal one, is what it's called.
No, it's a no
No
contact.
touch.
The no
No
contact
touch.
infrared.
You don't, you won't put it on the forehead.
Okay, but still probably should be clean, if you're just coming within hair contact.
I think that's in the protocols, but I honestly can't remember right now.
Have we heard anything about our pass-through one at all yet?
Yes, we actually got the pass-through thermometer and we returned it already because it is a,
Okay.
so what they did is they took and they made it was three-dimensional. So it went like this with a big thing on the top and you walk through. And that part is the metal detector, which didn't mention that it was a metal detector at all. And so what they did is they took that metal detector and they put a thermometer right here that you have to walk by it this way.
Okay.
It doesn't work. You have to, every time I walk by it, you kind of have to lean in when you walk by it.
Yeah.
We returned it. The guy said we could return it. So we ordered some other ones that were going to hang on the walls. I'm very disappointed in our walk-through thermometer.
We just have one then? Just have the one, don't touch one?
No.
Like,
Oh, no, we have like 15, 20 of them right now. They're all over everywhere.
Yeah, Susan,
And
like
it's just
at the
one
front door.
check, but it's something.
Absolutely. Now, so then when you would do it at the beginning of the day, and then would you do it prior to the game as well?
Um,
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can spike.
Would that be a good idea, Mr. Clary?
That's
Before practice or the game or
Or
both?
before?
We
Either
have
one.
a, we have a COVID coach in place. It's gonna be, we haven't had enough meetings to know every protocol that we're gonna do. We're just basically here tonight to see,
Sorry, I didn't know what was.
yeah, I mean. we'll do whatever it
I
takes,
think it would be maybe
It's gonna have to be decided by them.
But you're willing to do whatever
a good idea to
We
at
think-
least consider it.
needs to be.
I think you have a really good group of football coaches in this league that will do anything for their kids. And until it gets to the point where it's unsafe, we're not dumb enough to keep going or push somebody to keep going. So I think in that regard, as long as we have a great plan in place, and I think we're okay. And if it happens to happen to a school, it's unfortunate. Iowa had a full spring sports. They're already playing their first games of football this week. And they've had great success, and they're pretty close.
And yet in the county of Grant, there is a cross-country team that is all quarantined already.
So we have talked about like the mental health of kids and having something. So if we would not have football, would you continue the conditioning and the practice and things like that because you're saying that that's safe? And then if there would be the possibility then to play in spring?
I don't know. To answer the first part of your question, there's no way we could practice or play if we were quarantined.
But you can continue to condition.
Not if we're quarantined, if we just.
How could we bring a kid in?
No, she's saying if we decide we're putting it off till spring, would you still condition and practice with the kids?
Because
That's
we
the
know
question.
that,
I don't think you can. the contact days are limited.
No, we're not talking about being in quarantine. I'm talking
The
about,
contact days for out of.
oh, out of,
There's only
okay.
limited contact.
You have to
Okay.
follow the rules. You can't be doing another sport during somebody else's.
Okay.
season. And like I said before, spring is not a good thing for the smaller schools, just because we have a lot of kids that play multiple sports here. There would be a 3-week overlap of spring, and I'm pretty sure there's an overlap of this end of hoops.
Yeah, so to give you an idea for basketball, the only time I really ran into this was the year that we went to state and I was coaching at Zika. We had an overlap with track only, and it was only for that 1 week. And so the kids were already going to go on Wednesday anyways. They participated in basketball practice and track practice. That was 2 days. Versus, I think you said, what would be the first day of practice for spring?
I think it's February 22nd.
And my understanding of that would be that a regular season league would be just wrapping up, or the first round of playoffs would be, depending on how they do that, because the state tournament itself is March 1st. So we're already, so instead of having that 1 week of overlap, we could potentially have 2, maybe 3 weeks of overlap.
The 2021 alternate fall sports start date for football would be Monday, March 8th.
For the first day of practice.
For the first day of practice, the earliest first game is Wednesday, March 24th.
Mention that.
Just, I mean, we also are planning on going to Florida that week if we're still able to.
Just throwing it out there.
There's just too much at a small school.
Are we addressing this one sport at a time? Or are we going volleyball, middle school?
I do think we need to address it one sport at a time and middle school and high school separately. Because cross-country already started. We're gonna have to figure out how to get the kids from here to cross-country. When school starts, right now, they typically drive themselves during the summer. And we can't let them do that during the school year. They shouldn't be driving themselves now anyway, but that's neither here nor there. We need to worry about getting them. So we have to hire a bus driver to do that because we can't fit them all in the van and social distance. So that's an issue, which we're gonna be dealing with soon. Volleyball has, you guys saw for both volleyball and cross country, the additional safety things. So no spectators, all masked for volleyball, no trading sides, no, it's, so that's all set up for both of those sports. It's football that hasn't been really delineated what we're gonna allow and not allow because the conference is so split. It was already split between 8-man and 11-man. And then you throw this in here, so it's consistently split. So, I mean, if we allow fans and say DeSoto doesn't, are they gonna be mad? We'll play, but if we don't allow, they don't allow fans, we don't get to go there and watch, but they can come here and watch. It's kind of, that's again, still one of those up in the air things, and that we could allow them to practice until the next board meeting, and then choose more specifics on football, because we do have a little bit of lag time. They can practice for a week. And then we can just still decide fans, no fans kind of a thing, because our first game wouldn't be till the 24th or 5th, 4th.
No.
Nobody's really voted. I mean, it's such.
But could they practice if you decide to go to state?
No, we already said that.
Because of the
contact.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about whether or not we would allow the fans to be come to watch the games. That's a decision we can still make once the season is started. And it's a difficult decision because the counties, depends on the counties. Because right now Crawford only lets you have 100 people inside, period. Well, once you get 2 volleyball teams and all the people that go with them, that leaves like 1 fan per girl. So, so they decided, yes, we're wearing masks and no fans, because it was easier to say no fans. Everybody's safer, and we can videotape and publish all that stuff. But that's just an example.
I don't know if I'll get an answer, but I have another conference meeting tomorrow. So regardless, like with football, I know we're split, but we're still having an athletic director meeting tomorrow just to see what other schools thoughts were on. That part's been a little bit on the back burner because the start dates for volleyball cross country were sooner. So plus we spent putting it off. So we're meeting again tomorrow. I can bring up their thoughts because we would have a board meeting like 12th of September. The first game would be the 25th of September for football. So there's still time to discuss how to handle crowds. One of the ideas I like, if we can go to that, I forget who said it was, be able to give each player tickets, maybe 2 or 4 tickets max per player, and it's pretty much their immediate families, and that's your crowd. But they were always parents, grandparents, or siblings to still come, and that's it. We didn't, like I said, we didn't talk about football crowds yet. It was just how to do cross country and volleyball because the start dates were soon. So we're meeting again tomorrow morning.
I mean, my feeling is I absolutely love sports. I mean, I play, but I would like to see something more in place. I don't think we can just open the gates. I don't think that's feasible. I don't think that's smart. Like Steve said, this is a tough decision, but getting our kids face to face for education time needs to be first on, in my opinion, on the list. And I just struggle. I mean, I see how they line up, and I'm not saying that our kids would be the ones that would give it, but we're bringing people in from the outside, and we don't know what they're all doing. And that's, like with volleyball, it was pretty cut and dry. This is how it's going to be, and this is the way it's going to be. This is kind of mumbo jumbo.
I don't know what you mean by mumbo jumbo. The WIA has met several times.
Well, I'm not impressed with the WIA. Sorry.
I think our teachers here do a great job, and I also think that sports is, for some, is a way to get through school. And if we're gonna mentally, if they don't have sports, you're gonna have some kids clock out. And that's, I mean, I have a thing from San Diego where they did 6,560 players in a soccer club. And there was 15 kids total that had the COVID. So that's 0.01% in their summer season. Mr. McGuine from the UW, he's a mental health doctor, spoke at the WI meeting. If you watched that the other day, I thought he did an outstanding job of talking about how kids need not only the opportunity to play sports, but be in school. So those are things you'd have to weigh on that as well.
Are we talking acceptable numbers? Is that what we're talking?
For
acceptable numbers for number of people that potentially get it or number of people that potentially get sick? Because, acceptable numbers when you're talking about people you don't know about are one thing. Acceptable numbers when it's people you know become quite a different thing. I read statistics all the time where it's, only 4% of the population has died. I guess that's acceptable number. You know what I mean?
That's not acceptable to me either. I agree.
And so the problem comes back to, if we go through it, everything goes through and nobody gets it, okay. But if it comes down to somebody gets it playing sports and they bring it back here and we have to shut the school down, who's left responsible? Who's the ones that, and I know the kids love to play sports. I've done a lot of stuff and you know, youth coaching, youth things like that, and those kids love it, and they put a lot of time into it, and there's no doubt for their mental health, it's great. It all boils down to that if something happens, who's the ones that are gonna stand up and say, we made the mistake, or we, you know, it's on us. And that's the only thing, you know, I would feel much more comfortable if you guys would say, this is exactly what we're gonna do, instead of saying, wait, this is, you know, being more proactive instead of, this is, we'll do whatever you tell us to do. If, you know, you say, okay, we know we're gonna do this, we know we're gonna do this, we wanna go above and beyond, you know, those are the things that, you know, there's things in here that you handed out that, you know, you wanted us to read, and I don't, you know, it's not what you're telling us.
I wouldn't say that. I think Mrs. Brzezinski has a good question. I gotta go back and do it. I haven't wrote this. This is what Richmond Center's coach handed into us, and she approved it. So I do want to look at that mass thing again. But like I said, the Football Coaches Association spends a lot of time with the WIA to make sure things are good. And so I'm not quite sure what you're pointing against the WIA.
Well, the WIA put things in place for volleyball. I wish they would do the same for football. They put the no fans, they put, you're not gonna change sides. They actually established, or was that you athletic directors? Okay, okay.
There's a nice set of guidelines that's out there, so.
So Zach, with this next meeting that you're going to, do you foresee the athletic directors setting up the same type of thing for football?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's like the last couple we had, because they're only in for football, basketball hasn't been there, Hillsborough hasn't been there. So it's, and then some of our conference schools are 8-man, we're now not having.
Mhm.
So I don't know if, I mean, hopefully with the ones that should get tomorrow, us to Soto, be on the same page, but with basketball and Hillsborough, I'll get the invites, but they haven't shown up to any of our other meetings. I mean, that we, I'm not sure how people get anything. We're actually fishing quote, because we're missing multiple schools unless they're actually will make it tomorrow. But
Mr. Tomei,
yeah,
when you go to that meeting tomorrow, since the fans cannot come to volleyball games, I would like to ask you to, I know the games are taped by young people. Since parents cannot tape them, then you need to hire a professional to tape them in case players would want to go on to seek scholarships. Because I think it's really unfair if churches are allowing people to come to church and sit 6 feet apart. You're allowing the gymnasium or students to come sit 6 feet apart and eat in the gymnasium. To me, there's no reason that families, or like you say, if tickets of parents can't come and watch their students play. I don't think it has to be necessarily, you know, if the freshmen are done playing, they don't have to come see the varsity play. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
some of that I'm sure with why we went that route is, especially like when we did this, when you're limited to Crawford 20 at 100, more or less. So you added players, all the game officials, all the coaches, you're already over 50, so you might be able to accommodate even all families being able to have a person come.
But all teams don't have how many players?
You didn't want to go, which I don't think it's right. You don't want to go team specific, like it's too messy. It's got to be a compromise.
But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we can't tell another school that they have to do it.
No, but
We
my,
could suggest that.
no, but my point is, if I can't come watch my child play, I want somebody professional to at least video her.
We can ask them, but we
No,
can't.
I'm just saying for her.
No, I understand it, but we can't make another school.
No, it doesn't have to be through the other team, I'm just saying for her. If that makes sense.
So what happens if we say, okay, we're gonna allow football, but no fans?
That's the decision you have to make.
I'm guessing you as a coach wouldn't care because you're still getting the coach and play.
I don't care. I think our community thrives on being able to attend the games, and I think with the outdoor facility, there's chances to be able to have some fans. I think the 2 to 4 ticket thing, maybe that's a good idea because we haven't even talked about transportation yet to the games, but if you're telling mom and dad they got to bring their kid to DeSoto, but they can't go in the gate, that's going to be pretty tough.
Well, part of that is not our
And
decision.
I don't know.
That's
what
from the
we're
county.
choosing for transportation, but that's an option because of based on how many people can be on a bus. So that's going to have to be another decision made by you.
We can put as many students on the bus masked that we would like. I mean, we'd like to keep it to under 48, that's 2 per seat. Frankly, if they're gonna play football and not mask while they're practicing, to socially distance on the bus, it contradicts, we're trying to keep them like wearing masks all day and cohorting versus not cohorting. If you're gonna let them go from class to class, then let them play football. Let them get on the bus. It's, they're gonna be with the same kids all day. I'm not too worried about the games, actually, other than the Onalaska team. Again, that's just my 2 cents. They're too far away.
By lacrosse.
They're by lacrosse, it's like, oh, no. But again, I don't know. I'm not up on the numbers in lacrosse or anything right now, but, I do think that it's good for the boys and girls. I want us to have volleyball also.
Julie, I do have a question on them. How many kids did you say for the bus?
48.
Okay, but those numbers are based on whether the kids, like a kindergartner versus older kid.
Well, they're 2 per seat is what it is.
Okay, so we could do 2 per seat. That would be then we would be able to take a team to a game because I think we'll have 35 kids roughly.
So we'd need 2 vehicles.
There'll be some coaches on there and then they take the van and the.
Okay. And they'd have to wear their masks.
Okay.
And I don't know why you're gonna have probably maybe 3 away games.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know why you wouldn't just say send 2 buses and.
Yeah, and we can do that.
Distance them out. If you're gonna do that, you might as well distance them out as much as you can. And, because you normally would have
Yeah,
5
see
away
with
games.
that though too, I'm perfectly fine with that, but we still need the van and trailer just because you cannot put stuff in the.
Yeah.
Those are details I think we can work out.
Yeah, and that's one thing.
That's what I'm saying. You'd normally have 5 road games, potentially 6.
Right.
So your expense wise, you're coming out the same and you would at least, when you're inside.
Yeah.
You would be, I would think, still be expected to wear a mask, but you would still be spread apart a lot farther.
We want to
Well,
discuss
like
middle
what?
school too now, or, because I'm going to make a motion we play football for the high school.
Do we want to address them one at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's been a motion made to play high school football this fall. Is there a second?
Well, again, it's like the other, are there going to be anything in place? I mean, I can't vote for that. I'm going to tell you, if we're going to have the buses, if we're going to have no fans, I'd like to see a plan. But, whatever.
Do you want, Chad, do you want to implement this plan that we have here? You'll have to look it over better because you didn't know that masking was required.
Well, I think we need to look at all the WI guidelines first on the CDC, but
We will have another school board meeting before the first game.
Correct.
Implemented.
We have to make this decision tonight.
Yes, we do need to make the decision tonight.
They're gonna have a schedule in place by September 1st.
I would think that if we approve it, then we can come back and say, these are gonna be the mandates, you know what I mean? That we can say, this is whatever, we can mandate it however we want. And we have to meet those criteria to practice, participate, travel. These are the things that we have to make, and if
Because you don't need anybody's permission to say we don't have fans or do have fans. That's our decision, and based on our county and our numbers.
Correct.
Right, so, I mean,
and you could make an amendment to that motion that's saying that the mandates that we come up with would have to be agreed upon, or we cancel the season. Because if they need a decision now to get going, we could come up with the mandates later, and if the mandates don't pass, then the original, if your amendment is that the mandates would be approved and passed, if they don't pass, then the whole thing becomes.
I will second the motion.
Can I make one comment? The wording is wrong on that sheet. So this is the WI return to full sports. And from Mass. It says, obviously it's mandated.
Are you gonna let the Richland Center coach know that his
Yeah, I will.
proposal
Thank
is
you.
wrong?
Yep.
Okay.
But that being said, we can make the mandates at our school whatever we want. You know what I mean? If we feel that those aren't strong enough, that we would.
I think every time they've talked about that, Steve, as far as the players, the exertion of the, when they're running and physical activity.
I don't think you can make them wear them on the, during the game, but I think.
That's the wording that's
Yep.
right there.
But I think you could say,
Correct.
many, many other times, there's most other times you could have a mask.
And that's Linda's point here is that is the exact guidelines, yep. Right there.
Yeah, you'll just have to let him know, because it's capital letters and underlined even, so.
And so is that on there too, so then maybe he skipped ahead and accidentally did not put up until game.
So, Chad, what happens if you have a kid or a couple of kids that just won't wear a mask and won't follow the rule, the guidelines set forth? How do you envision you guys?
With the COVID-19 coach, there's already a plan in place as far as them. We have to sign in every kid that's there for practice, so that there's the tracing situation. So I don't see how.
But what if a kid in practice?
Did not follow the rules.
But what if a kid in practice, you're saying, during this time you have to wear a mask and you have to social distance, and the kid just says, I'm not doing it. Or you look over there and they're constantly don't have it on, then.
I think it's the threat of it going away is the biggest risk, because as we explained in the weight room, like, you have to do these things or it's just gonna get shut down and you're not gonna be able to participate.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And that's exactly what it has to be. Just like all these other things, they've got to help us and you guys got to help us do things. And the same thing, like we've said on many, many other things, there's got to be compromise, you know what I mean? Like, if we look in and say, it's gonna be this way, it's gonna be tough to.
We had really good success in the weight room. With all those kids, you know, like, and it was really a conversation that simple, like, here's what you have to do. If you're not doing it, it's just gonna get shut down and taken over. It's just that simple. And we honestly have not had an issue.
Kids want to play. Get a motion, you got a second.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded by Mr. Brisbois. Is there, Linda, did you want to put an amendment on there or no? No?
And this should be on the next agenda of the school board though, for possible amendments or discussion on various sports programs, volleyball, football. Because this will be, we have to get this cleared up and clarified to the public.
The only thing is you have to say yes or no tonight, so.
We are, and I've already made a motion to move forward with the season as is, but the standpoint of how many spectators are gonna come. And that's the things I'm talking
The
about.
thing with the spectators is, heaven forbid an accident happens and mom and dad aren't there and somebody's got to go to the hospital. That kind of comes into the fold a little bit.
How do you handle that though if their parents work Friday nights and aren't there anyways?
Right, well, that's.
So I think that boils down to, we're not in normal situations, and we probably gotta, you know, compromise someplace in there. Because I think there's people that are very leery about having 500 people, even if it's outside. I think that makes a lot of people very nervous. So I think that is.
Well, they even count people going into Walmart. So if they get to the threshold, they won't let any more in until more come out, and then there's stuff.
That's a big threshold.
I understand that, but there still is a threshold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how many can we
You're right, yeah.
safely fit on the stands or in the grass or the stand?
We had, you know, one of the things we had talked about with the sideline thing is, like, even if there is a game, they're talking about extending the coaching box. So we can get all the students and the athletes spread out and make 6 foot lines. And you could easily extend those out for the fans if we decide to go that way, like, here's your area, stay in your area.
Yeah, it's extended from the 10 to the 10 instead of the 25.
So it's been moved and seconded to hold fall football 2020 high school. Roll call.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Mrs. Variance?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
No.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Motion carries on football. Next discussion will be middle school football.
I like that the middle schoolers are cohorted during the day. And we leave them like that. When they're going to play football, they're going to intermingle.
When's middle school season start?
You know what? It's not
When
really,
the day of school starts, right now,
Actually, I think it starts September 7th. too.
or that's what I meant, same day as, okay. Well, for the sake of middle school, if we were have to see that we would start 8th, we start on Labor Day.
right.
Start on that Tuesday. The closed session, I can talk about why we're currently we don't have coaches. There's yes, there's applicant. There's also part of it for middle school.
That needs to be tabled. Coaches.
Yeah, if we don't, I guess if we don't have coaches, we don't know if we have people, you know, that are going to be responsible for those type of things. And the concern there is the high school is not cohorted and the middle school is cohorted, and we pull them out, mix them.
And there's also, you know, once you get the high schoolers all spread out on the football field, then the middle schoolers are in a smaller area because the high school does need to spread out. And the middle schoolers usually have that one little area on the baseball field that we finally got all green now. So, you know, they by default are in a smaller area anyway.
Have we discussed junior high volleyball? Because we discussed high school volleyball, but we haven't really discussed any.
No, we haven't. And now I know that a couple of the teachers want to, Mr. Favreau, you would know better than I would. Are any teachers planning on using the community gym for their classes now?
I'd plan to. This is Liz Niemeyer.
Oh, okay,
I'm still here.
thank you. I almost forgot that there were people on Zoom. So, you know, having those teachers have their setup during the school day to have to take it all down to have practice at night might be inconvenient. It can be done, but it's like we have taking out lots of tables and things, so we have more storage. We have more room in the rooms. Now our storage is all filled up because we had to remove tables and desks and stuff.
I guess it's hard to make a decision with no coaches, right? Motion.
Do you have an idea when the first game is for middle school?
Do we have games yet?
Yeah, the schedule would go, it would be the next week. Like the first practice will be the 8th, so it'd be a game on the Thursday after, so.
Do we know who it is? Do we know on these other schools that they're planning on having?
Well, that's just it too. We were supposed to play Riverdale, obviously they're not playing. Seneca, they're not playing. I got a middle school schedule is a touch different. We were supposed to play River Ridge. I'm assuming they're playing, but I better check that schedule. We were supposed to play Weston, even though they're 8 minutes, just for middle school, because close, so they're not playing. So I don't know what's going to be up for middle school schedule. So
We'll just have to table it and then come back and see, because we just don't have any answers at all.
No.
I would definitely advise for a reduced schedule. The high school is doing that.
That's what we're.
Play 5 and 7 teams.
Yeah.
Play with somebody local.
Might not be anybody to play.
Right.
so
Figure out who's available and if you can get a couple and it works.
I think it's a little bit different situation though with them being in their cohorts during the day and then mixing
I
them.
understand that.
It probably makes that a little, but without a coach and without any idea of the schedule, we really can't address the emotional table.
Make a motion to table it, middle school.
It's been moved and seconded to table the middle school football. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, middle school volleyball. Same thing there, do we know at all? It's all middle school, high school sports. Same thing in volleyball, we don't know what's.
There's still going to be a schedule. 2 of the 4 people that coached last year will coach this year, so that's that part of that. The schedule might be a little bit different again because there'll be a few schools that aren't playing, like Seneca, like Zika still is, Boar still is, Sure Weston still is. I think they just went to straight football, there's football, everything else. So there's going to be a few games, but there'll still be a schedule. There's still so that coached last year. One thing that still do it is we go through the same guidelines with high school on which we should, which be a little bit different, I guess, but middle school, we'll have something deal with not being able to drive and with the little crowds, that kind of thing, be a little bit different. So everybody voted for high school volleyball, no fans. I don't think they're going to say, well, let's allow it in middle school. Even though nobody can drive and that sort of thing, but I definitely bring that up tomorrow. Even though we do that at the high school level, or at the AD meeting, for this, let's try to get high school figured out, and then I think middle school we get to it.
Do we just want to table volleyball too?
I think we have to, because I think we have to also see if that's going to be used as a classroom.
Yep. That we may not.
Well, Liz isn't using it after school though.
Yeah.
That's what practice would be.
Riser set up,
That's true.
and it all has to be taken out.
Take it down, that's true.
Right, and she might have things marked for 6 feet apart.
Then there's discussion to be.
There is discussion on that.
Is there a motion there?
So move to table.
Is there a second?
I'd second it.
All in favor of tabling junior high volleyball, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that. It was volleyball, we'd already voted on and discussed about going forward with the recommendations that we've had. Those have stayed the same, Mr. Tony? The high school volleyball recommendations, if they haven't changed, stayed the same?
And cross-country.
And cross-country. And I know when we talked about that, we talked about trying to have our home games videoed, and if we can figure out how to get them on, so that way people could potentially watch them live stream, if we could get that done.
Or video.
Yeah, we're probably gonna put this up there.
Sure.
This was a good
And that
purchase.
would potentially, if we could figure that out, be another option if we limit the fans or don't have fans to be able to live stream a football game, so that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got that all figured out. He's
Pie in the
excited.
Sky does that, right?
Yes.
Well, the conference and non-conference schools.
I'm saying for volleyball or something.
Yeah, they started it, with the cameras and everything the whole time.
All right then. Any other discussion on that?
So, well, just for my clarification, until the coaches who plan on coaching middle school volleyball, are they still gonna be able to start practice on the 8th, even though the next board meeting is not until the 12th? If they really want to do it and they want to coach, or do we have to wait?
We don't know that we have a place for them to practice. Isn't that what we said?
Right.
Just so I know what to tell.
I would say they'll have to wait.
We'll have to wait till the following week
Yeah.
at least. Tuesday.
Anything else?
Amy, you had a question, you wanted to bring something up during
No.
sports section.
Well, there's no fans, so.
Okay.
6.3 then, discussion possible action on staff-only children.
So one of the things that was posited by the staff was, there's a lot of kids that they have that attend here, and what are they gonna do on Wednesdays? But we talked it through, and Kathleen actually talked it through with her staff, and they don't want anything special done for their kids. I was thinking maybe we could have, there's not a lot of bonuses to working.
River Valley is doing a Black Hawk staff care, or something they're calling it, where if you're a staff and you have school-age children on the virtual day. I don't know all the details, but I asked the elementary staff, because that's where the majority of the kids that can't stay home alone. They did not want that option.
So, but
So no action?
no
No
action.
action.
Okay. 6.4 then, discussion possible action on track club. I don't think we had anything there, nothing there. We just put it on just in case something came up.
Yep, we had participating parents got together again on Sunday, and the general consensus was no action, but leave it as is. The only thing that the board would have to recognize, or the administration would have to recognize, are we have 2 schools with letter requirements. That's it. As long as they meet that school's letter requirements, that's fine.
So then you kind of decided they could go either or.
Because our district is split. Some kids are closer to Spring Green, some kids are closer to Hill Point. So presented all the information. By doing it that way, there would never ever be Ithaca recognition on a trophy or on a jersey or anything like that. But everybody was kind of fine with that. So, no action.
Good, thank you. 7 then, new business.
I had a question on that. So are they bound by our academic rules as far as eligibility?
Yes, they would.
Yeah, that's all still in place. Yes, all that's still in place.
They would letter, like if their coach recommends their letter, they would letter off of what it takes, like if they have a point total or they have something.
River Valley, I can speak to it real briefly. River Valley, you have to have its participation, obviously your academics, and then you have to have a certain average for your score in order to letter. Weston, it's a little bit different. Participation is still there. They just say, because they're smaller, if your score counted towards the teams for that week 3 times in the season, then you'll letter. So they're a little bit different, but
And you guys will report those back to the athletic director as far as lettering, you know, so-and-so gets a letter and so-and-so gets a letter.
Yeah, I'll get all that information. Brian Olson did step down as the point of contact and I was nominated as the point of contact. So I shared that with Julie and gave her all my contact information. So anybody has any questions with it, she's got all my information. And I guess whoever I need to contact, I'll get a list out to the administration on who was actually participating. And then Zach will have to sign a cooperative agreement for anybody going to ballot. Because we don't pull off with any other sports. Weston kids that are shooting with Weston, you don't have to do anything.
Okay. We're good. Thank you. So 7.1 then, new business discussion, possible action on accepting alternate open enrollment. Probably gotta wait for Julie.
I have the paperwork. So if I'm reading this correctly, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming in and 1 going out. What else do you want to know?
Do we know?
Oh, here she comes.
The
Stay on.
classes.
Open it up, but I handed her.
I know, and I tried.
So is there any issues as far as the classes that are coming in that is gonna potentially crowd us?
No. We have one in that has a family in here already. We have 3 coming in that were in our district, moved, and now want to just keep attending, and 1 ninth grader out. But we never had that child, so.
I also move to approve that.
Been moved by Mr. Brisboy, second by Mr. Manning, roll call.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriant?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Get on 7.2, discussion possible action on HR office bids.
All right, we received several, that's what I was running to get. I apologize, I didn't grab this folder earlier. We have a bid from Hubs Construction for $23.50 for the wall, includes removing the ceiling, framing, waiting for the electricians, insulating the wall, install dry tape, patch drywall, and then install the drop ceiling back. Includes all the work and materials. And again, that was $23.50. Ash Creek for the duct work was $11.97. The carpeting is a $6.50 bid. We just have an electric bid to make 5 outlets and the internet work for $13.50.
And who's that from?
That one is Barnett Electric. Most of these you guys saw already in buildings and grounds, excuse me. The Hubs one was the new one. Then we have a Kevin O'Halloran Carpentry for building the partition, insulating the wall, cover it with drywall. It's $1,500 for the labor. We have a Dan Fredericks proposal for $1,200 with
That's for the carpentry also.
carpentry also.
Materials
But,
included in
yeah.
those? Time and materials, or you said?
The one she just said labor.
Yeah.
Materials and labor to construct the 12 by 12 partition wall, finished drywall as needed.
And that was what on that bid?
$1,200, that was Jan Fredericks. The Kevin O'Halloran, did I read you that one? I'm sorry. Building a partition, insulating the wall, covering with drywall, and put in the suspended ceiling.
Is it time and material?
Labor and material, $1,500. And then Mr. Where's that short little one in here? We had one from Mr. Hackle. Short and little one I got. Here it is. For $2,300 for construction, electrical, and finishing, and labor.
And electrical?
And construction, electrical, and finishing, $800, yes. Labor, $1,500, total $2,300.
So he could install the outlets?
He is not certified as an electrician though.
That leaves that out then.
But then what's,
He's an electrical engineer, but he's not an electrician.
but then, so if you take the electrical out of Hackle's bid,
Oh, he put it all together. I'm sorry. It's $800 for construction, electrical and finishing. So I can't really pull that out. I'm sorry.
Is that all of them, Julie?
That's all of them.
Okay, so if we take the low, the $1,200 bid, plus the $1,197 for the ductwork, Ash Creek, we only have one bid on that.
Yep,
$650 for the carpet, we only have one bid on that.
yep,
And $1,350 for the electrical, we only have one
yes.
accessible bid on that. That comes to $43.97. If you take the low,
Of all of them.
the $1,200 one. So question is, are we comfortable with the $1,200 one? Are we comfortable with any of it?
How much was the ductwork?
1197.
1197. And they were, it's Ash Creek, but they, we asked,
Schneider?
no, not Schneider.
Oh,
Who do we normally have to do the work? No.
isn't it fall?
No, that's-
Precision Control, sorry, Precision Control to give us a bid, and they said they would have hired Ash Creek to do it anyway, so we just went right to Ash Creek. So 1197 for that. And $650 for the flooring, $1350 for the electric, and then your three different carpentries were $1,500, $1,200.
That seems like an awful lot for that little bit of duct work, but.
$2,350.
Probably have to get that airflow though.
Yeah, the problem is getting anybody to come in and do that little job.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to, you know. That's exactly right. They're busy and they say, well. That's understandable.
Yeah.
We don't have to. And you're right, they gotta do it right. So
Yeah.
What you say total was with the.
$43.97, that's taking the $1,200.
Right.
And who had the $1,200 one?
Dan Fredericks. Dan.
And are we know them?
Dan Fredericks, I do remember, I don't know, if Frank, if you're still on the Zoom, there was a question about insulation because the O'Halloran one had insulate wall and the Frederick one did not have insulate hall.
So then the $1,500. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, we did talk about Kevin doing that because you got, the buildings and ground people knew him and they knew what kind of work he did. So that's kind of where we was leaning on that one. And the other, was it Dan Patrick or whatever, Fitzpatrick?
Dan Fredericks?
Yeah, Frederick, I'm sorry. Nobody really had any recommendation on him, so we was kind of leaning towards Kevin, so.
Because it does have the insulation on it.
Correct.
No, we don't need that. We've got an electrician. Barnett is.
Right.
So you'd have to add.
300.
$46.97. No, I just want to make sure that.
Good. Good
It's
call. Good
it's been a long day. Mhm.
I know, it wasn't supposed to be this much.
Can we table it and try to get some breakdown from Hackle?
Yeah, we can.
Thoughts? I mean, I don't know what the time frame is that Brooke absolutely has to. I mean, we still have to make the decision, is this the way to go? But, I mean, I think we want this done, but, you know, timeline.
I mean, she did work an entire year without her own little private space. She could
Correct.
probably do another couple weeks. I mean, yeah, I know we want to get moving on it, but if we need.
I'd like to have clarification, have Hackle Construction separate out the electrical.
We'd have another buildings and ground meeting come up. and do
True.
this anyway.
Mhm.
I think we could discuss, and you guys could discuss it. Is there a possibility with everything going on, just doing a partition? You know, if we would tear out that sink and tear out those cupboards and move that over and just put a temporary partition in there for this year, where we could say, okay, well, you know, get some other bids and you know, that would be discussion, then you could bring that back to buildings and grounds and we could discuss that option.
Okay.
Instead of trying to do it and having them doing it during the school year.
Yeah.
And having guys coming in and out, you know. That'd be another option we'll present at buildings and grounds.
Okay, so
Or
I'll make
maybe
sure.
they could do it during Christmas break or something, you know,
Yeah,
when
good
we're
point.
not at, you know, so that it could get done. Because, yeah, it doesn't necessarily say that they'll start tomorrow.
No.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, I mean, they might accept the bid, but they can't do the work, so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a work
It's like
one.
at the buildings and grounds, we say. My question was, can the board give the buildings and grounds permission if you get this broke down from, is that Dean? Is it Dean?
Brooke's husband's name, Brent.
I don't think so, because it's money, we all have to even
Yeah.
take roll call on that.
Well, I mean, we've done it before, we've set,
We could say
Oh,
up to,
like an upper limit and
Up
then, okay.
I don't care what, I'm just saying,
I would say,
to get the thing moving,
yeah.
because we gotta get it moving.
Yeah, the more I think about it, you know, we're starting school in a week, they're not gonna be started. And I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to be doing it, you know, while school's on. So we might have to, we can discuss it at buildings and grounds and then come back and do a,
Because we have another meeting in September,
yeah,
in 2 more weeks.
okay. So no action. Then you'll talk though, kind of talk that scenarios over about
Yes.
partition and these.
Yes, Frank, we have one of the maintenance and buildings and grounds meetings for the staff.
Okay, 7.3 then discuss possible action on part-time janitor.
So we just want to make sure that you guys would be okay if we're not 100% sure how it's going to look cleaning the school. And if we have to hire somebody that's just part-time to fill in, we might need them during a lunchtime or something to clean things, but we just really don't know exactly how it's going to look. We're looking at like maybe 3 hours for 4 days a week. At whatever the substitute janitor rate is, I think it's $11 an hour.
Okay, if I could interject here.
Okay.
It's going to have to be more than 3 hours a week because the people on nights right now, they're going to be absolutely swamped. And, you know, just listening to all the stuff that's going on, what we have to do for sanitizing and cleaning and so forth, to get that school clean and sanitized, we're going to have that janitor, that sub, at least three nights a week. We're talking 24 hours.
I think Julie said 3 hours a day.
3 hours a day for 4 days is what she was saying, Frank.
Yeah, right, but still, that would get it done, in my opinion. On days, Larry and I could probably take care of everything on days, but on nights, again, we got to sanitize everything. We got to fill the sanitizers and so forth, and we got to wipe everything down. I mean, it's a lot of extra work. I've talked to other school districts, and I think Reedsburg hired 5 extra custodians, probably for each school or whatever. I'm not for sure, and that's full time. So again, it's I'm just saying there's a lot more to it than just wiping things down. It's got to be sanitizing and all the extra material that we're using. So
3 hours, 4 times a week is what I said. Is that
He's saying 3 nights.
3 nights?
yeah, it would be on nights.
How many
Especially-
hours a night?
It would be 8 hours for those 3 nights. They would have to do a whole shift.
Oh, see, he's even saying less time than I said, so.
No, it's
He's
not.
saying more. He's saying
No,
8 hours a
week.
day for 3 days.
3
full
days,
nights.
8 hours.
You want to, okay, sorry, I misunderstood then.
Yep. Mhm.
So Frank, what days would you have them?
Well, that we would have to figure out. I was thinking Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays and so forth. Definitely on Fridays because we want to sanitize and get everything ready for Monday. And then, you know, if teachers come in over the weekend, then, you know, we don't have anybody on staff on the weekend. So again, it's just kind of a touchy subject, but.
If you do a deep clean on Friday, would you need them again on Monday?
No, you
Well,
want.
Kids would be here during the day if they come on at night.
Yeah, but they'll be here Thursday during the day. So we'll just have extra cleaning
Wednesday
that
they
night.
wouldn't be here.
Wednesday, well, the kids wouldn't be there, but still, we could do a lot of extra stuff on that day. And again, this is not set in concrete, but I would like to see at least a minimum of 3 days a week.
Yeah, but they're on nights. These guys would be on nights, so they would be doing some of those things.
But we should get it done.
You know, because before, if I understood you guys right, we will be using lockers now?
Just high school.
Okay, okay. And again, those lockers are gonna have to be sanitized every night.
Yeah.
You know, and you're talking a couple hundred lockers, so I mean, it's, you know, it's a lot of extra stuff. If we're gonna do this right, and if anybody knows me, I'm not much for spending money. But if we're gonna do it right, we're gonna have to bite the bullet.
So 8 hours, 3 times a week, 24, that's under.
What if we
Yeah.
did 5 hours those 4 nights? It's about the same amount of hours, but then the extra janitor's here every single night helping out for the first, 4 or 5 hours or whatever. Is that not enough time? It seems like that makes more sense to spread it out every night.
Well,
Now,
no,
everything extra that Ben and Sue and Tom aren't doing currently that we've added to the schedule, could somebody do in 5 hours?
I'm not gonna argue with that. Yeah, I think we could handle that if it'd be every night.
Doesn't that make more sense?
I think it's probably easier to get somebody.
Right.
5 nights.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
another hour.
if we've added X, Y, and Z tasks to the 3 janitors at night, but we can get 1 janitor to do X, Y, and Z
Yeah,
in 3 or 4 or 5 hours, whatever it takes, that makes more sense to have them here every night doing that. So they can spray the lockers every night. They can do whatever extra we're adding on. It makes more sense than just doing 3 nights and having more hours on those 3 nights.
right.
Okay. Okay, I'm all for that. And then take into consideration, if we have a custodian that's sick or can't come in for some reason, then maybe that janitor, the sub,
Yeah.
could work a couple, 3 extra hours.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. We have a built-in
So,
fill-in,
yeah.
and you just would maybe have a little extra time that 1 week.
Right.
What's the number we have to stay under for
30.
30? So it'd be okay.
So would 4 hours, 4 nights a week be enough, or do you need 5? you think?
Okay, now we're stretching it.
I said 4 or 5 to start with, and you said you're okay with it. So now I'm asking, do you need 4 or do you need 5?
I would like to have 5.
Okay.
5 hours, 5 nights a week or 4 nights a week?
If we could do 5 nights a week, I think that would be good. And again, this is flexible. Once we get going, because again, we're going down a road we've never been down before, so we don't know.
And we would hire it that way, that we would tell them that they would not be going over certain hours, but if we
Correct.
don't have enough cleaning for them, we will decrease their hours.
That is correct, yes.
That will be mutually agreed upon between Frank and myself. Yeah, we don't, and we're just kind of covering all our bases, because the more we talk about what needs to be done, we want the kids to be safe. So, this is part of the price of doing schooling now.
Put your money where your mouth is on that.
So the proposal would be looking at somebody 5 hours, 5 nights a week.
Yes.
A total of 25 hours.
Up to 25 hours.
Up to 25.
Yeah.
Up to 25 hours.
Compare it out.
There.
That makes sense.
Been moved by
5.
Mr. Manning,
I'll second it.
second by Mrs. Peterson. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call. Mrs. Ferriant?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski? Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Okay, then 7.4, discussion possible action on accepting the SEL Social Emotional Learning Grant of $25,000.
I'm so excited.
I'll
Probably a
make that
positive thing to vote on.
Congratulations. Did you write that?
That's a national grant, people. Only 80 of them were given out in the whole United States. and We got one.
Good for you. Congratulations.
I will
Thank
make
you.
that motion.
Moved by Mrs. Peterson,
Second.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ferriant, speak.
Mrs.
I
Variance.
can hear you over there, you keep quiet.
She has
Thank
her
you,
high
Mrs.
sign.
Crowdy.
So, roll call, please.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski. Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
With many thanks and gratitude for Mrs. Brody for going out and doing that.
That's right.
7.5, then discussion possible action on setting horse show dates.
This is for the Ithaca Horse Show. And I forgot the date. Did I tell you?
Oh, geez, I had it attached to,
There, it's the second.
I'll get it. I just have to go back to the agenda. I had it
I said
attached
it
to
to
the
her.
agenda.
Didn't I remember?
On that subject, the fair is gonna have to be on the next
I was gonna say.
agenda.
Yeah.
Good one. That might go, we might have to move to the multipurpose room.
All right, Sunday, October 10th at 10:30, rain date, October 11th at 10:30, Anderson Horse Farm, Sextonville.
There you go.
That's a good one.
We can social distance down there. And wear masks.
Just put horse asses in between.
We just, but 4-H, we wear masks.
You need a motion, you need a motion on that? Is that it?
I guess.
I also move.
We need to wait if there's a Ithaca fair, because it kind of goes hand.
But if the fair is canceled,
We'll adjust that at that time.
Yeah.
We'll set the date now, that if we need to change, we'll.
Mrs.
adjust.
Variance, you seconded? Thank you.
all right, all in favor of setting the horse show date for,
Saturday, October 10th.
there you go. In favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 7.6 then, discussion possible action on policy. 7.6.1, policy 501, instructional program.
I made it red so it would stand out. We would like to take out the 180 actual teaching days and put in the actual hours from DPI that you have to have.
That's the only adjustment.
Yep.
I also move to approve that.
Moved by Mr. Brisboy, second by Mrs. Blazinski. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carries then. 7.6.2, 503.5, state requirements.
So we don't do many of these requirements now. So we would like to remove the list of requirements that we're not really doing.
We do follow though the state
Yes, but
historical dates. I can't remember the name, but.
when was the last time we celebrated American Creed Day or Kashmir Pulaski Day?
My
Or
kids didn't know who 3 of those people were, and if we're recognizing these every single year, they should know who they are.
Susan B. Anthony, yeah.
Okay, well, they know who she is. The
so
other-
we would just like to take the list off.
The other point is, March 4th isn't even Kashmir Pulaski Day, it floats every year for what reason. But
Columbus Day,
anyway,
we're going there.
the point is, if Wisconsin statute changes, if the Wisconsin statute changes, we're not looking at it every time. So if we just link to the statute, people can go look at it if they want. Then when it changes, we don't have to change our policy.
There you go.
So that's basically what this is.
Yes.
Lincoln, okay.
Yes,
Rick, okay.
I'll make a motion
Then
to
moved by
change.
Mrs. Blazinski
I'll second.
to go to the state requirements of link, right? Link to the state requirement.
Yes.
Second by Mrs. Variance, right?
Yes.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, 7.6.3, 503.2, field trip.
All right. So what I did was the field trip request is a link and the parental permission slip is a link. And I took everything out of the policy and made it a procedure so that if we have to change that form, we can. And the same thing with that form. So we just removed the forms as part of the policy and made them procedures so that we could tweak it and change it as we need to.
One was 502.3 and then one was 503.2.
Oh, did I type
No, on this,
503.2?
Captain, at the top, I don't know if
This
it's
is
applicable.
503.
No, up at top, originally you had one that was 502.3 right there. Is that
That's
even
the field
applicable?
trip.
That's the procedure, not the policy.
That's
Okay.
this one right
And
here.
then I might have,
Not a big deal.
I always
And
double
this
check.
one, well, it should be,
Well,
they should both be 503.
3.2
A and B.
or something like that, yeah. I usually put form on it in the title of it, but.
Okay.
So I really didn't change it. I just removed part of it to make it a procedure instead of policy.
Okay.
I would make the motion that we accept the form and that it's a procedure, not policy.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, 7.6.4, 5091, Wisconsin Technical Excellence Scholarship.
So we just reworded it a little bit at the top there because it said prior to September 1, 2017. And we're past that now. So we don't need the prior and after. We just made it all that you have to have a career and academic plan leading to a technical degree. And then in F, we removed the high school committee shall and select recipients. So we have another policy that's got this red in it about if there's a tiebreaker.
It's the academic. This is the technical. The academic excellence scholarship had the red.
Yeah, and this was so much cleaner and nicer than this original, this other way. So we just made them match up.
In this one, it said that the tiebreaker would be decided by how many leadership positions kids in,
Yeah.
say like student council officer positions. I think we can all agree that at Ithaca, those positions are a popularity contest. And I don't feel like that should be a deciding factor for whether they get this scholarship or not. So it should be based more on what the academic scholarship is based on and not how many kids want this kid to be the treasurer of the class. If those were teacher nominated, it might be different, but they're student nominated. So we changed it to match the academic one, which makes more sense anyway.
Okay. Any other discussion on that?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the changes on the Wisconsin Technical Excellence Scholarship policy.
Second?
Second.
Second by, first by Mr. Blazinski, second by Mr. Brisboy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Then 8, adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.851C for consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. In closed session 8.1, discussion regarding performance evaluation of district employees, teaching staff, administration, coaching staff, and that's it. So we'll be in closed session, not less than 5 minutes, but it could very well be longer than that.
I'll make that motion.
I move by Mr. Blazinski, second by Mr. Manning, roll call.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning? Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriant?
Okay. We're in closed session. Are we going to the art room?
Yep.
Yeah, we do.
I didn't feel good about any of those votes. If I'd voted the other way, I wouldn't have felt good about it either, so.
Okay, we'll be right back.
I have to say Susan, I'm like, it's not me. But I didn't want to say that out loud.
Yeah. I was like, how did that happen?
Thank you.
I don't, yeah, it's hard to sort of look at what it is. Okay, thank you.
How was practice of conditioning or whatever you call it? Yeah,
Yes. It was fun.
getting it there though?
Yeah. I think so. It's kind of hard though, because I'm the oldest one there, a lot of freshmen, and a lot of inexperienced people there.
So you take the leadership role.
Sometimes I think that they don't like to hear me say, move your feet.
A lot of times they don't want that. It's just like a lot of times you don't want to hear what you want. So take that with a grain of salt when you're delivering it.
Building for a few days.
Is she leaving all her stuff there?
Yeah. Computer, phone.
Oh, my.
Just got my renter's insurance up for today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that makes sense. Wow.
They come in 5 packs and they're 500.
There's no spray in here, Jim.
Oh.
But you could basically drop it and be see-through and make the. He had a good idea, or he had a good comment that made sure that those things are flame retardant, because they're. Fire marshal up there said, be careful on what you're putting in the rooms for petitions. They need to be up to fire code. Like that, never thought about that. Okay. Flip the page here. 9 then reconvene to open session.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Removed by Mr. Ridgway, second by Mrs. Peterson. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You're opposed? Okay, we're open session. Anybody there yet?
Well, Cheryl's still typing. Yes, I have Cheryl, Holly, Frank's iPad, Melissa, Sarah Nelson, and Shelley Claimer.
Okay. So we're back? Okay, 9-1, discussion possible action hiring 4 paraprofessionals. The recommendations,
You want them all separate?
No.
no. I don't think we need to. No.
We need to.
It's-
Okay, so Nicole Jones, Sarah Harris.
You mean Janelle?
What did I?
I think
You said
it's Paul
Nicole.
or Nicole.
You mean Janelle Jones?
Janelle Jones, Sarah Harris, Luann Horner, Jean Lindsay. I think Sarah has a second last name.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
make that motion.
I'll second.
What was that, Julie?
Do I have the right names?
Sarah Nelson.
Not you.
Are you gonna be able?
We're trying to approve the paraprofessionals we're gonna hire, Sarah, so no, it's not you. Did I say Nelson? I meant Harris. Okay.
You got a new job.
Yeah, you got a new job, Sarah. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'll stick with what I've got, but that was so kind of you.
Too late, we voted on it.
There you go. And they are not getting benefits, so we are asking to pay them $15 an hour.
Okay.
So.
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
Mrs. Peterson, second by Mrs. Blazinski. Roll call, please.
I need a roll call list. Where are we here? Okay, Mr. Manning,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy,
Yes.
Mrs. Farians,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes. Okay, then 10, adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No, we could stay all night.
Okay.
Also move.
Mrs. Peterson, is there a second?
Second by Ferris.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Didn't bring you to school here, Sarah.
All right, I'm gonna turn the meeting off, everybody. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
called him and talked to him and then I.
Thanks, Sheriff, for showing up so I can give you my paperwork.